I've been a search and rescue officer for 10 years in the Blackwood National Forest. We have a handbook thick enough to stop a bullet. It tells us how to treat snake bites, how to survive a bear attack, and how to navigate in a storm. But there is one rule that isn't in the book. The veterans only whisper it to you on your first night shift. Rule number 1. If you hear your name called from the deep woods, do not answer. I used to think it was a superstition, a way to scare the rookies. But last night, 5 miles off the trail, I heard my mother calling me. My mother died 6 years ago, and whatever was using her voice sounded hungry. The call came in at 16 o'clock hours. A solo hiker named Alice didn't check out at the trailhead. She was last seen heading towards Sector 4th at Devil's Tooth Ridge. It's the most isolated part of the park. No cell service. No tourists. Just miles of ancient pine trees and silence. I radioed dispatch. This is Ranger Mark. I'm heading into Sector 4. I'll be out of range for a few hours. Copy that, Mark. Watch the weather. Storm front moving in. I grabbed my pack, my rifle, and my flashlight. As I stepped out of the Jeep, the air felt heavy. The birds weren't singing. The forest was holding its breath. It took me 2 hours to find her camp. Or what was left of it. The orange tent wasn't just collapsed, it was shredded. 3 long, parallel tiers ran down the side of the fabric. Bears usually crush a tent looking for food. This looked like someone had taken a razor blade to it. I checked the inside. Her sleeping bag was torn apart. Feathers floated in the air. But there was no blood, no struggle marks in the dirt, just emptiness. Her boots were still by the door. Whoever wore whatever took her did it while she was barefoot. I unslung my rifle. Alice, I called out. This is the Park Service. I found the tracks about 50 yards from the tent. Bare feet, small, running fast. She had bolted into the woods in a panic. But she wasn't alone. Following her tracks was something else. The prints were hugely size 16, but they were narrow and deep. Whatever made them was heavy. The strange part, the stride length, the distance between steps was 7 feet. Nothing on 2 legs walks like that. Not a man, not a bear. I followed them. They led straight toward the ravine. The sun was setting fast, casting long, twisted shadows through the trees. I gripped my rifle tighter. Alice, can you hear me? The tracks ended at the edge of the ravine. A 50-foot drop straight down to the rocky creek bed. I looked over the edge. My stomach dropped. There was a splash of blue against the grey rocks below. A body. I scrambled down the slope, sliding on loose shale. Alice, I reached the bottom. It was her. She was lying face down in the water. Her legs were twisted at angles that made me wince. I checked for a pulse. Cold. She had been dead for hours. I sighed, reaching for my radio to call it in. That's when I heard it. I was staring at Alice's dead face when the voice called out, "Help, please, is anyone there?" It came from the top of the cliff. I froze. It was a woman's voice, young, terrified. "Hello," I yelled back, looking up. "I'm a ranger. Stay where you are, please." I fell. "My leg is broken." I paused. The voice sounded familiar. It sounded exactly like Alice. I looked down at the corpse at my feet. The dead woman with the broken legs. I looked back up at the cliff. "Who is that?" I demanded. "It's Alice," the voice screamed. "I'm hurt. Please come up." A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. I backed away from the body, raising my rifle. "Alice is dead," I whispered. "I'm looking at her." The voice from the cliff called again. "My leg is broken. Help me." Then it changed. "My leg is broken. Broken, broken." It skipped, like a corrupted audio file. "Help, help. Help me." It wasn't a person. It was something mimicking a person. It had listened to her die. It had recorded her last screams. And now it was playing them back to lure me up the cliff. I clicked the safety off my rifle. "Show yourself," I roared. Thunder rumbled, shaking the ground. A flash of lightning lit up the ridge above me. For a second, I saw it, standing between two pine trees. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a mountain lion. It was tall, maybe 8 feet. It was painfully thin, its skin pale and hairless, stretched tight over bone. Its arms were too long. They hung down past its knees, ending in long, curved claws. It didn't have a face, just a smooth surface with a vertical slit for a mouth. It was standing perfectly still, watching me. Then the lightning faded, and it was gone. But the voice remained. "Mark, why won't you help me?" it asked in Alice's voice. It knew my name. I must have said it over the radio earlier. It was learning. I couldn't go back up that cliff. It was waiting for me. I had to follow the creek. It would lead to the old logging road, miles away. I took one last look at Alice. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I turned and ran. The rain started to fall harder, washing away the world, but I could hear it. Above me, on the ridge, something was moving through the trees. Crack, snap. It wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. It was keeping pace with me. It wasn't hunting for food. It was hunting for sport. I grabbed my radio while I ran. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Ranger Mark. I have a hostile entity in Sector 4. Static hissed in my ear. Then a voice broke through. "Mark, this is dispatch. Go ahead." Relief washed over me. "Dispatch, I need backup. I'm at the creek." The voice on the radio replied. The creek, the bones in the creek. "Mark, Mark, Mark." My blood ran cold. The voice shifted into a guttural, wet growl. "We are coming to play." It wasn't coming from the radio tower. The creature was broadcasting on my frequency. I ripped the earpiece out and threw the radio into the water. I ran until my lungs burned. Ahead, through the rain, I saw a shape. An old wooden structure. The miner's cabin. It had been abandoned since the 80s. It was rotting, but it had walls. I sprinted toward it. Behind me, the creature let out a shrieker sound like metal grinding on metal. It was close. I slammed into the cabin door. It groaned but held. I stumbled inside, slipping on the dusty floor. I spun around and slammed the door, dragging a heavy, rusted wood stove in front of it. I collapsed, aiming my rifle at the door. Silence. Then, a soft knock. Tap, tap, tap. "Open up, Mark," said my mother's voice. I sat there, hands pressed tight against my ears. "Mark, do you remember how we used to make blueberry pie?" The voice was my mother's, identical. She died 6 years ago. How did this thing know that? It wasn't just mimicking sounds. It was reading my memories. I looked at the window. I had nailed old planks over the broken glass. But through the cracks, I could see movement. "Open the door, Mark. It's so cold out here." I aimed my rifle at the door. "You're not my mother. You're a monster." From outside came a laugh. It sounded dry, like dead leaves skittering on pavement. There was a small knothole in one of the planks covering the window. Suddenly, the moonlight coming through it vanished. The hole went dark. Something was standing right on the other side. I shined my flashlight at the hole. An eye was staring back at me. It wasn't a human eye. The pupil was rectangular and horizontal, like a goat's. The iris was a cloudy, dead blue. It didn't blink. "I see you," I whispered, trembling. The eye slid away. In its place, I saw the smooth, pale skin of the creature. A long, wet exhale hissed through the hole. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. The sound left the window. A few seconds of silence. Then, a noise from above. Thump, thump, thump. It had climbed the wall. It was on the roof. The old wooden shingles groaned under the weight. It was heavy, much heavier than a man. Dust and rot fell from the ceiling rafters onto my jacket. It was walking directly over my head, slowly, testing the wood, searching for a weak point. Then, the footsteps stopped near the chimney. I looked at the stone fireplace. There was no cap on it, just a straight shot to the sky. The chimney was open. I scrambled toward the hearth. From above came a sound like wet meat sliding on stone. Suddenly, through the black soot, a hand emerged. It was pale white. The fingers were impossibly long, with too many joints bending the wrong way. The hand groped blindly in the air, searching for me. I grabbed a broken wooden chair and tried to jam it into the opening to block the arm. The hand snatched the chair. Its claws dug deep into the wood. I stumbled back. It was trying to pull itself down. I couldn't waste my bullets. I saw an old glass bottle on the shelf. Kerosene, or maybe old moonshine left by miners. I grabbed it and smashed it into the fireplace, soaking the wood and the pale arm. I struck a match. Eat this. I threw the match in. Whoosh. The fire roared to life instantly. A pillar of flame shot up the chimney. A horrific scream came from the roof. It didn't sound human, it sounded like grinding metal. The arm retracted violently, shooting back up the flue. I heard a heavy body roll off the roof and hit the ground outside. My plan worked too well. The fire in the chimney spread to the dry, rotting mantle. The cabin began to fill with thick, black smoke. I was coughing violently. My eyes burned and watered. If I stayed, I would suffocate. If I went out, it would tear me apart. But I'd rather fight than choke. I tied a bandana around my mouth. I racked the bolt on my rifle. I kicked the heavy stove away from the door. The doorknob was warm to the touch. I took one deep breath of the smoky air. I kicked the door open. I didn't run out standing up. I tucked my shoulder and rolled. I hit the wet mud outside and spun around, rifle raised. "Come get some," I screamed. But the clearing was empty. The cabin fire was blazing now, casting long dancing shadows against the trees. Suddenly, I heard heavy breathing behind me, wet, rattling breathing. It wasn't in front of me. It was hanging off the roof overhang, directly above the door I just exited. I spun around just as it dropped on me. The weight of it crushed me into the mud. I pulled the trigger instinctively. Bang! The bullet hit it dead center in the chest, at point-blank range. Black blood sprayed across my face. It staggered back off me, but it didn't scream in pain. Instead, it opened its mouth and mimicked the exact sound of my gun. Bang! The sound was louder than the real shot. My ears rang. It was mocking me. I tried to fire again. Click. Jammed. The mud had clogged the action. Damn it. I threw the rifle at its face and scrambled to my feet. I turned and sprinted into the woods. I could hear branches snapping behind me. It was coming, running on all fours like a dog. My destination was Tower 4, the fire lookout tower, 60 feet of steel rising into the night sky. It had a reinforced door and a radio. I saw the silhouette of the tower against the moon through the trees. It looked like heaven, but my legs were burning. It was close. I could smell the rot coming off its skin. I burst into the clearing at the base of the tower, 20 feet to the ladder. Suddenly, my back exploded in pain. It had swiped at me. Its long claws shredded my jacket and sliced deep into the skin of my back. I screamed and stumbled forward, hitting the dirt. But I didn't stop. Adrenaline flooded my system. I scrambled up on hands and knees and lunged for the ladder. I grabbed the cold steel rungs. The climb of my life began. Below me, the creature stood at the bottom of the ladder. It was laughing, in my mother's voice. I hauled myself up the steel ladder, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I risked a glance down between the rungs. My blood ran cold. It wasn't climbing like a man. It was gripping the outer rails, moving its hands and feet in a terrifying, rhythmic spider crawl. Its limbs were bent at sickening angles, but it was fast, impossibly fast. It didn't have a face, but the way its head was tilted up, I knew it was looking right at me. It made no sound, just the rhythmic clank-clang of its claws against the metal. The gap was closing. It was going to catch me. I reached the top platform, the catwalk. I grabbed the handle of the trapdoor to pull myself up. It didn't budge. Rusted shut. Years of rain and neglect had welded it in place. Below me, the clanging got louder. It was right below my boots. Open. Damn you, open, I screamed. I slammed my shoulder into the steel. A cold, pale hand brushed my ankle. I screamed and kicked out blindly. With one final, desperate heave, the hinges shrieked. Screech, the door gave way. I scrambled up onto the metal grating, sprawling on my stomach. I spun around to slam the heavy door shut, but I was half a second too slow. For long, pale fingers hooked over the edge of the frame. It was pulling itself up. Its strength was unnatural. The heavy steel door was lifting against my weight. I didn't think. I raised my heavy boot and stomped down on its fingers. Once, twice. Crunch. Bone shattered. Black, viscous fluid sprayed across the grating. It let out a sharp hiss and snatched its hand back. I slammed the door shut and kicked the rusty latch into place. I collapsed against the railing, hyperventilating. But deep down, I knew. A latch wouldn't stop it. I stumbled into the tower cabin. It was a 14 by 14 box. 4 walls of glass, perfect for spotting fires, terrible for hiding. I backed into the center of the room. Then, I heard a sound from the outer catwalk. It hadn't given up. It had climbed the railing. A shadow rose up outside the glass. It stood up slowly, unfurling its long limbs. In the moonlight, its pale skin looked like wet porcelain. It walked to the window. It placed a long hand against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. Its face was pressed against the glass. Where eyes should be, there was just smooth, blank skin. Then, it spoke. Open the door, Mark. It's safe now. It's me, Alice. But the voice wasn't Alice's anymore. It was my voice. It was speaking to me with my own throat. You can't come in, I whispered, backing away. I scanned the room for a weapon. My rifle was gone. Then I saw it, on the wall. A red box labeled emergency flares. I lunged for it just as the window behind me exploded. The sound of shattering glass filled the room. It had smashed its elbow through the pane. Shards of glass rained down on the floor. It climbed through the broken window, unfolding its limbs like a spider entering a shoebox. The room was too small. It towered over me, filling the space with the smell of rotting meat and ozone. I ripped the red box off the wall. Inside was an orange flare gun, loaded. Single shot. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. It reached for me. Mark, I'm hungry. It hissed. This time, the voice wasn't human at all. It was a guttural growl from the pit of hell. Before I could raise the gun, it was on me. Its long fingers wrapped around my throat. The grip was like steel. It lifted me off my feet and slammed me into the radio desk. Crash, sparks flew as the equipment shattered. I was pinned. I couldn't breathe. I smashed the barrel of the flare gun into its head, but it didn't flinch. It leaned in close. The vertical slit on its face opened slowly, revealing rows of needle-like, translucent teeth. It was going to bite my face off. I jammed the flare gun between us. Its mouth was inches from my nose. Saliva dripped onto my cheek. I had one chance. I shoved the barrel of the flare gun right under its chin, jamming it into the soft flesh of its throat. Eat this, I choked out. I pulled the trigger. Thump. The recoil jarred my wrist. A blinding orange light erupted. The magnesium flare didn't just hit it. It embedded itself inside the creature's neck. It released me instantly. The scream that tore out of it shattered the remaining windows. It wasn't a mimicry. It was pure, raw agony. The creature stumbled back, clawing at its own throat. An intense red light glowed from inside its neck, illuminating its translucent skin from within. Smoke poured from its mouth. It thrashed blindly, smashing into the walls, knocking over the furniture. It was burning from the inside out. I scrambled backward into the corner, shielding my eyes from the blinding light. It staggered toward the broken window, disoriented by the pain. It lost its footing. It tripped over the window frame and tipped backward. For a second, it flailed in the air, silhouetted against the moon. Then, it fell. I crawled to the edge and looked down. It plummeted 60 feet, a trailing comet of fire and smoke. Crunch! It hit the rocks at the base of the tower. The flare was still burning, casting a grotesque, flickering light on its broken limbs. It didn't move. I slumped against the wall, gasping for air. To the east, the sky was turning grey. Dawn was coming. I survived. But as I watched the fire below, I realized the woods were still too quiet. I stayed awake all night, flare gun in hand. At 6 o'clock, the sun broke over the mountains. In the morning light, I gathered the courage to look down. There was a massive black scorch mark on the rocks where it had landed, but the body was gone. It had burned, fallen 60 feet, and still walked away. I traced the drag marks in the dirt. They didn't lead back into the deep woods. They led toward the main hiking trail. Toward people. A cold shiver went down my spine. At 7 o'clock, I heard the chopper. They lowered a basket and hauled me up. The medic looked at the wound on my back and winced. Bear attack. He yelled over the engine noise. I nodded. If I told them the truth, they'd lock me up. As the helicopter banked away, I looked down one last time. At the edge of the tree line, deep in the shadows, I saw a tall, pale figure standing there. It was looking up at the sky, watching me leave. They admitted me to the county hospital. Police came to take my statement. "Where is Alice?" the officer asked. "She fell in the ravine," I said. I couldn't reach her. A bear attacked me. I didn't mention the mimic. They would have sent me to the psych ward. The police left. The nurse gave me a sedative. But I couldn't sleep. The beep, beep of the heart monitor didn't sound right to me. It sounded like someone was mimicking a machine. 2 days later, I was discharged. I went back to my apartment in the city. 3rd floor, secure building. The noise of the traffic, the horns, the people lit, made me feel safe. There are no woods here. It can't reach me here. I double-locked the door. I drew the curtains. I turned on the TV to drown out the silence. I thought I was safe. 10 p.m. I was making coffee. My phone rang. Unknown caller. I thought it was the hospital or the police. Hello, static on the other end. Then, a female voice drifted through. "My leg is broken. Mark, help me." I dropped my mug. It shattered on the floor. It was Alice's voice. That exact recording. "Who is this?" I screamed. The line went dead. I checked the call log. It didn't come from a number. It said no caller ID. It found me. I thought about calling the police. But what would I say? Suddenly, a sound came from the balcony. Tap, tap, tap on the glass. I froze. I live on the 3rd floor. There are no trees here. Nothing can reach this high. I peeked through the curtain gap. Nobody was there, just city lights. But on the glass, there was a smudge, a handprint, made of black, oily residue. And the fingers, they were twice as long as a human's. I backed away from the window and went to the front door. I looked through the peephole. The hallway lights are motion activated. They flickered on, empty. They flickered off. On again. This time, I saw it. A shadow in the corner of the stairwell. Tall, gaunt. It didn't use the elevator. It climbed the outside wall. I bolted the chain lock. I dragged the sofa in front of the door. Then came a knock. Knock, knock. Polite human. "Mark. Open up. It's Chief Miller." The voice was identical to my boss. Deep, authoritative. "I need to discuss your report." Opened the door. I almost reached for the lock. Then I stopped. "Chief Miller is on vacation. He's in Mexico." "You're not Miller," I said, my voice shaking. The voice changed. It laughed. "Smart boy," it hissed. It didn't try to break the door. The sound moved away. Now, scratching from the ceiling. I looked up. The AC vent. The screws were slowly rotating. It was unscrewing them from the other side. Clink, one screw hit the floor. Clink, the second one. It had entered the building's ventilation shaft. Its boneless body could fit anywhere. I ran into the bedroom and slammed the door. I was trapped in the bedroom. I heard the vent cover crash to the floor in the living room. It was inside. I stared at the bedroom door handle. Suddenly, I heard the jingling of keys. Keys. How did it have keys? Then I realized it didn't have keys. It was mimicking the sound of keys. Click, clack. It was using sonic vibrations to manipulate the tumblers in the lock, and impossibly, the lock turned. The bedroom door creaked open. I dove into the closet. I peeked through the slats of the door. It walked into the room. The most terrifying part. It was wearing my torn ranger jacket, the one I lost in the woods. It was trying to stand like a man, wearing my clothes. Its pale, long hands poked out of the sleeves. It sniffed the air. "Mark, I can see you," it said in Alice's voice. It walked straight to the closet. It knew. It stood right in front of the door. I could smell the rotting meat stench coming off it. It didn't open the door. Instead, it tapped on the wood. Tap, tap. Then it spoke in my voice. "No use hiding, Mark. Game over." I gripped the kitchen knife I had grabbed. This was it. The closet door swung open. I screamed and lunged with the knife. But I froze. It didn't have a blank face anymore. It had contorted its skin to form a face. My face. It wasn't perfect. It looked like a wax mask of me that was melting. The eyes were too big, the pupils rectangular. The smile stretched to wide, reaching its ears. It looked at me with my own face and said, "Do I look pretty?" I was too paralyzed to move. It lunged. I tried to fight, but it was like fighting a hydraulic press. It bit me right on the throat. But it didn't kill me. It tore out my vocal cords. I tried to scream in agony, but no sound came out, just a wet rasp of air. It smiled at me, blood dripping from its chin. "Thank you," it said perfectly. "This voice is mine now." It stood up. It was becoming Mark. The next morning, the sun rose. Mark walked out of the apartment building. He was wearing a fresh ranger uniform. His hair was combed. A neighbor waved. "Good morning, Mark." Mark smiled. A perfect, handsome smile. "Good morning," he replied. The voice was flawless. He got into his Jeep. He was going to work. Back to the woods. There are many hikers there. Many new voices to collect. And the real Mark, he is lying in the closet. Silent. The end.